What if the way you've been telling your life story reveals the secret to what is holding you back? Stories play an integral part in how we see not only ourselves, but the whole world. Stories are more than just an important part of communication. They also reveal hidden aspects of our inner talk, which can either support us or end up holding us back from the very things we want most in life, without us even realizing it. Join author, mindset coach, and award-winning singer-songwriter Carrie Rowan on her show, Look for the Good, every Monday at 5 a.m. and 5 p.m. when she shares nuggets of wisdom from her internationally best-selling book, Tell a New Story, 5 Simple Steps to Release Your Negative Stories and Bring Joy to Your Life. Carrie's powerful stories and compelling guests will empower you to change how you look at your own life while giving you some powerful tools and tips you can use every day to help you feel better and move yourself closer to the life you've been longing to live.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Look for the Good. I'm your host, Carrie Rowan, mindset strategist and speaker, and I love sharing nuggets of wisdom about the stories we tell each other, and more importantly, those stories we tell ourselves. And you can join me and my special guests as we share our personal stories of strength and triumph every week here on Dream Vision 7 Radio Network. You can listen online on your mobile device, in your car, or ask Alexa to play Dream Vision 7 Radio. And tune in every Monday at 5 a.m. and 5 p.m. Eastern to get real stories and tips on how to turn your story and your life around. And evolve with us as we unite humankind with universal love. I'm so excited to be back again this week. And I have Pasha waiting in the wings. Hello, Pasha. How are you today?
Good, Carrie. Hi.
I'm so excited to have you here. And before we jump in, you guys know I love talking about stories. We talk about stories, those stories, that story, the one that you thought you could never share, because it's in that story, the story that, well, is a lot of times something that we don't want to share or don't feel that we can share. But this is a safe story sharing place. And when we can share those stories that we think are the ones that are the worst, the ugliest, they're wrapped in shame and guilt and all those low level emotions, I know one thing for sure, that when we share those stories, they can no longer sit in that shame, right? We bring them to life. We bring light to those stories. Because when we can share those stories, and when somebody comes to me as a client and says, well, I've got this story, but it's just so awful, I don't want to share it. I know that we are on the verge of a huge breakthrough. And I think Posh would agree with that. So it's right. It's in those stories. That's where our superpower lies. And a lot of times I just love awakening people to that perspective because it makes all our stories okay, all our stories to share. And then once we do and we own that story, we can decide what we want to do with it. Do we want to keep telling it like that? Or do we want to rewrite that to be a new and empowering story? Then it can power not only us, but everybody that we share that story with. And so that's why I love this work so much. That's why I wrote a book on it because there's so much goodness. And here's the coolest thing I love about this work. Once you teach people this about their stories and you share that and they start to really catch themselves in that story, you never want to go back. You can't go back. Once you realize that story is the thing that's hanging you up, holding you back, keeping you stuck, you never go back to telling it exactly the same way. And that's the beauty of this work. So welcome again, Pasha. Super excited to have you here. Do you mind if I read your bio?
Go for it.
Okay, so Pasha Marlowe is a global neurodiversity speaker. She's a coach and a consultant. Her book, Creating Cultures of Inclusion, is an actionable framework for anyone who wants to lead neuro-inclusively and create space for all minds and bodies to thrive. I love that. When we first met, I said, your subject matter is just so near and dear to my heart. And thank you for all this incredible work that you're doing.
You're so welcome. It is the work I will do for the rest of my life. I am certain it is personally and professionally aligned with who I am. So
I
I'm
love that. You can see you just light up when you talk about it. Tell us how you're so personally aligned with this. We would love to hear that story.
Yeah, well, I have lived experience as a neurodivergent, disabled, and queer person, and those go together for me and for a lot of people. But it was not always that way. The story really is a story of internalized ableism and internalized shame, just like you were referring to, the shame that doesn't live in the dark. Because, like so many, when I started to learn and unlearn about neurodiversity, and when I started to learn and unlearn about disability and recognize myself in those and queerness, I know that those intertwine and unravel at the same time. So when we're taught to be neurotypical or live in alignment with society's idea of what is quote unquote normal or ideal, which is neuronormativity, and we start thinking, well, who told us that? And where did those rules come from? And why am I following those rules if they don't feel aligned with my innateness and my nervous system and my mind? And we start unraveling that. Soon after, we also unravel, well, what else was I told that I
Mm.
don't necessarily believe in or align with? And so my story is always about the unraveling of norms. And because of internalized ableism and internalized shame, I assumed that I would receive a lot of discrimination and bullying and stigma uh, related to those identities. And I was right. And I still, and now I'm 55, by the way. This is easier to do when you're older, I will say. Because I did not have the strength to do this when I was younger, although I think the younger people of today are definitely coming out really so aware and so willing to destigmatize and depathologize mental health and
Hmm.
neurodivergence, disability, and so on. But I wasn't as a younger person. So now at 55, I am proudly neurodivergent, proudly disabled, proudly queer. And that took a long time to say because I was really worried about losing people. And I did, and losing opportunities. And I did, and losing relationships. And I did because of stigma and bias and ableism out there.
Wow, that is so powerful and so true. I mean, you said so many amazing things in there and on so many levels, and how a lot of these things do go together in your whole, unraveling is such a huge thing because and I totally recognize what you're saying about this generation. I so admire them because they're not afraid. They are so not afraid to step into who they are. Whereas when we grew up, you did not do that, right? Whether it was your clothes, never mind who you're going to love or any of those other things. What you did, what you didn't do, all those things were very much under the microscope, I feel like.
Yeah.
And you step a toe outside back then, bullying's always been a thing, but bullying was not like reprimanded. Bullying just went on. It was just part of being on the bus or going to
Mm-hmm.
school.
Mm-hmm.
So for those reasons, maybe that's why they feel safe. Talk about why is it that they feel so safe and they really have blinders on. They really don't see differences the way that we were brought up to see them. They see them as an asset.
Yeah, I mean, I'd like to think that with each generation, we're breaking down the stigma and bias, and we're becoming more diverse, frankly. I mean, like our country, but the world is becoming more diverse. Also, it's the world, I believe, is becoming more disabling. So, in that, the world is faster, louder. There's technology, there's AI, there's more connectedness in terms of transportation. So we have this like feeling that we need to get somewhere and we have to get somewhere fast. And we don't connect as much to community in our local, neighborhoods and the people close to us as much. It's interesting. Like we're spread out and so we're connected in a way, but also disconnected. And I think that's disabling us. I think it's really causing a challenge of loneliness, but also overwhelm, sensory overwhelm, and a feeling like the world is scary,
Mm,
and also that the world, the way it is right now, is not in alignment with most people's nervous systems. And I don't think our nervous systems, for the most part, were made to keep up with the pace of the world that we've created. And you
yeah.
put AI in there, and then it's a millionfold.
It's unbelievable. I love what you said is the world, it's not that the disabilities are growing, right? I just wanted to clarify. I love that point. It's that the world is disabling. I love that because it takes the onus off of us. Like it's like, hey, the
Mhm.
world, guess what? The world is disabling. The world is so externally focused on everything. And like you said, fast, bigger, bigger, better, all those things.
Mhm.
And you do, we all, we're older, we can understand, but we still feel the pressure of it all, right?
Mhm.
It's like,
Yeah.
so I can't even imagine how debilitating that feels to kids, and like you said, it's all about the nervous system. We're all
Mhm.
overstressed, overscheduled, we're
Mhm.
over everything, and we've done that to the kids since they were little with the play dates and the play this and the that and preparing everything
Mhm.
for them. They don't even know how to keep their own schedules at some point because we've so trained them in that way to do this and do that in this activity. So I just think that's really powerful what you just said. So what do we do about that? I love how it kind of normalizes it though, because that's really important.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, one of the things as a therapist and coach that I do with my individual clients and my couples clients, and most of my clients are identify as neurodivergent and or disabled and or queer, one of the three, if not all. And the therapy and the process and the journey is often to a place of awareness and honoring our own nervous systems, honoring our needs. Everybody has access needs, everybody has sensory needs, everybody has support needs. Some people have more, and some people really hesitate to recognize the needs or ask for help because they feel like they're being quote unquote too much or too emotional or too needy or too much of a burden. And that is the narrative that often our society gives us. So I understand why people feel that way.
Yeah.
But the process is kind of working on that and honoring and advocating for ourselves, in ourselves, with ourselves personally, but then in our homes with our families, and then extending out if you work in the workplace outside of home, in the workplace and beyond. For so many people, and like thank goodness for remote work, especially
Mm.
for the disabled community. Remote work is making it possible to work. I
Right?
wouldn't be able to go to an office from 9 to 5 under fluorescent lights in a busy, noisy setting. I would never thrive in that environment, and I'm an entrepreneur. And so many people who don't thrive in the traditional workplace do become entrepreneurs and or work from home and do remote work. And like that's a blessing and something that we can continue to offer people as for what to do. You
Yeah.
know, an organization as much as possible, I believe, should offer flexible work space and hours,
Hmm.
including remote
Hmm.
work when possible.
Yeah, I love that. If I totally hear you with the fluorescent, that always bothers me, gives me a headache. I can never spend too much time in the office. Plus, I'm totally dating myself, but when I first was in corporate America, the sales office, I was in sales too, so I was always on the go. I could be outside, I could be in my car, I could be driving. To this point, it was always something new. But you go downstairs into the operations section, and they were all smoking.
Yeah.
They were
Yep.
smoking in the office. Can you even imagine in this day and age?
No, and I wouldn't be able to do that. I'm allergic and
Yeah.
I wouldn't be able to breathe. So
Yeah,
nope,
yeah,
that's it, you know?
yep. I'd go down there,
Uh
hold my breath, bring them my papers, and run back upstairs. Yeah,
yeah,
it's crazy, right? So I
yeah.
love that. We have offered a lot with that remote work and the
Mhm.
flexibility too, I feel like employers with time schedules, right? Like, "Oh, you gotta drive to
Yes.
Boston, okay, so why don't you go at, be here at 7 AM and get out at 3." This willingness to be more flexible with people, I feel like is really adapted to our lifestyles a little bit better.
Yes, I think it's the direction we're going and the direction we're staying. I think, once during COVID, we realized that we can do so much remotely. It's hard to go back. And I know a lot of places are going hybrid, and I understand that that's useful too. And in fact, Gen Z, the recent research showed that Gen Z prefers hybrid over full remote. Probably not the disability community, but Gen Z on the whole, because they're lonely. They're
Yeah,
lonely. They don't
yeah,
see their friends like we used to in the streets playing or at the mall or at the roller rink or whatever we did as Gen Xers. They're online and they're Snapchatting and they're Xboxing, but they know intuitively and innately that that's not a deep human connection.
yeah.
And so they long for some human contact.
Mm.
Not all the time, but offering hybrid for Gen Z is useful and
Yeah.
everybody, obviously.
And
But
that and everybody. That makes I think that's really that is a phenomenon happening in this country. And you said something earlier too about, just what's different about the world now. And I read this stat one time. I used to say it was part of my talk where they did the stat on houses and people live now in bigger square foot houses than ever before in history and like any of our ancestors before us.
Mhm.
But yet that's because a lot of times they lived generationally, right? Or they had a lot of people over. Nobody's coming over these days. right? Like they've got the houses, and then I talk a lot about the funny thing about if you ring the doorbell in our house, because nobody really rings the doorbell. So people freak out like, wait, oh my God, what is that? Who's getting there? Who's coming? Who could that be? Right? Like before, where all the kids would come in the neighborhood and they'd ring the bell. Can Pasha come out and play? Right? Like, and now it's like, oh my God, who's at the door? It's like a scary thing, right?
I notice I've moved 20 times and to many
Whoa.
different states. Yeah. And looking for home, seeking home. I'm right now in the Portland, Maine area, and I live in a neighborhood, and it's the first neighborhood in probably a decade of homes that I've lived in and places I've lived where kids actually are still playing outside, but it is a very intentional decision of the parents in the neighborhood who connected with each other to, intentionally talk to each other like, hey, let's mindfully create play space outside, let's mindfully connect our kids outside, and put a trampoline out or a jump a swing or something like let's create some outdoor space for them to encourage them to do it. But I notice that they're just very small pockets of kids that do that, and generally when I'm out and about walking I do not see kids playing outside, even on sunny weekend days. It's not so much what they do
Yeah,
anymore.
but I love that they intentionally, there's a family that lives behind us, and I can hear those kids outside every single day. Like I thought they were homeschooled for a while, but they're not. I see them, they ride their bikes to school. Okay, they don't even take the
Good,
bus. I heard this
good.
hammering and nails going on, and they're like young boys. And I said to my husband, "What is going on?" Because both of our offices are right here facing the woods, and that they're through the woods. They're building a tree house. Who
That's
does that,
awesome.
right? Like, this is the stuff
So
that
good.
we grew up doing. I could tell you every rock in my backyard growing up, like, right? There was a pond back there. We used to all go skating. I mean, we spent time. That's where we learned all those problem solving skills and connection skills and who's going to be the leader.
That's exactly where I was going to go. The problem solving, the learning to fail, the messiness, the process. We're losing that not just in outdoor play, because I completely agree with you in outdoor play, but also with AI. Like AI skips those steps, so we're losing this ability to problem solve with each other, to resolve conflict and repair, to like work through the messy middle of I don't understand this. What do I think? Before
Mm,
like what AI agents think and what Google thinks. Like, what do I think? And so
yeah.
one of the things I suggest my clients do often is preferably outside and preferably walking amongst trees is to just shut down the phone. Like don't listen to a podcast or even music for just a few minutes a day and just notice what downloads into your own mind and heart that's true for you.
Love that. That is so true. I was listening to this book on tape. You know who Sonia Coquette is?
Nope.
Choquette, she's super cool. She's all about coming back to your intuition. And this is exactly what she says because I do that. I used to, it's my time. Okay, one more thing I'm going to do while I'm on my walk, right? We're multitasking. I'm like, oh, I meant to
Yeah.
listen to this. So I'd set myself up. But then all of a sudden, I heard her say that in the book, that same very thing that you just said.
Yeah.
You can't connect to yourself or your intuition if you're constantly inputting something. So when you
Yes.
go on your walk, just walk. Right?
Mhm.
It's the ultimate form of mindfulness. Just
Yeah.
walk and see what you come up with. That is where I came up with some of my best ideas that are in my book now, my 5-step process, right?
Absolutely. I was talking to a client the other day, and this is really interesting. And this goes back to like the workplace and actually internalized ableism. And she works at a computer in an office. She does architecture design or something designy on the computer. And then but she was telling me she gets her best ideas when she steps away from the computer. She goes outside and just walks. And then the ideas come to her, and then she goes back and she works on the computer. And she was saying, but now I have to stay at work for something like 9 hours because I take breaks outside. I'm like, whoa, 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 whoa. You're clocking out every time you step outside. And she said, yeah, because I'm not in front of my computer. Because in her mind, um, the work is at the computer. And when you step outside to take a walk or breathe some fresh air, that you're off clock.
Hmm.
And so and then I'm thinking, but that's when your best ideas happen. And that is, you're working, you're not like socializing, eating lunch, even though I could probably justify that as work too, because, you're networking and collaborating. But
Exactly.
I'm like, no, like count that as work. That
Yeah.
is problem solving. That is processing. That is that is innovating.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so is all that. And we need the outside to get our best ideas. We need to feel that grounded feeling, even though we probably have our shoes on, but it's okay. You're still feeling that
Mhm.
grounded. You're surrounded by trees. You're breathing deeply. And if you want to talk about the energy psychology of it, you're swinging your arms. You're weaving your energy back the way that it was supposed to be and the way it came. And
Yes.
everything you're doing is syncing up to who you really are. And
Mhm.
there's so much power. The funny thing about us humans is I feel like, especially with clients, they're like, "Oh, that's too simple. No,
It's
that's just so simple."
Oh, yeah. The simplest things are the things that work. So we were talking before the call about how I talk to my clients about ADHD and manage ADHD challenges.
Yes.
And one might be medicine of my five pillars. Some people like and need medicine. However,
Sure.
the five pillars are movement, nutrition, support, and systems and medication if you need it.
Yep.
But all those things, the movement, free, connection with people, support systems free, systems could be free as well, like, systems and tools that you use
Mhm.
to stay on track or whatever. And, food obviously costs money, but it's so simple. And then people are like, yeah, 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 yeah. They literally do that. They're like, yeah, 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 I know. Eat well, sleep well, exercise,
Yeah.
drink water.
Yeah.
And they roll their eyes, and I'm like, okay, I totally understand what you're saying. That, like, because I'm saying something you've heard a million times, that it doesn't hold a lot of value. But have you actually, let's say for an entire week, like done those things? And then they'll come up with all the barriers or even excuses as to why not. Well, I'm tired, well, I'm busy.
I
And I'm
don't have
like, well, these are
time.
the
Yeah.
baseline
Mhm.
things. Like
Yes.
if you were sleeping, that's like baseline sleeping, baseline water, baseline, moving however you like to move. Right. And so, yeah, it's unfortunate that the very simple and often free things are the ones that people discount. And then the very expensive, complicated, usually useless things are the ones that are like, yeah, that I'm going to invest in that.
Because they're looking for the magic bullet, right?
Right.
My youngest is so like that. She thinks just one little pill and she'll all be fixed up. Just
Mm,
what? Yep, mom, take me here, mom. This, to but it's not ever that, and it's always in the basic stuff, right? Because that's the stuff that's been around for the longest time. But I love
yeah.
what you're saying because as you peel that back, they're not. Yeah, they've heard of it, but have they done it? Like, okay, even if I try to teach somebody a new concept, oh, practicing gratitude. Of course I practice gratitude.
Right.
Well, what do you mean? Explain that to me. Well, of course I'm grateful when good things happen. Wait, that's not practicing gratitude. Practicing gratitude, even though it sounds simple, is a practice. It's like yoga. You got to get the mat out and actually do it. You got to actually write those 2, 3 things before you go to bed at night. And then you got to actually use it as a practice. When you feel yourself be stressed, what are those 2 things that you want to think about that you're grateful for? That's the practice. It's very intentional, right?
Yeah. Yeah, it is. It takes practice and it takes discipline. And some would say it takes building habits, which I know, for example, for ADHDers, building a habit is very hard. Sometimes
Yeah.
nothing becomes like an actual habit that we don't have to think about. And like some people, I have friends who say, just just brush your teeth like you just go to the gym. And I'm like, no, not you cannot put just before either of those things. Both of those things can be very actually hard. And so, yeah, it's just interesting. For one person, a habit is quite easy. And for the other, it will always take a lot of mindfulness and
Yeah.
intention and
Yeah.
discipline connect and
Yeah.
consistency.
Absolutely. And I feel like discipline is one of those weird concepts, right? Where people think
Mm,
you have it or you don't. But actually, you can train yourself to have it, right? It's just like anything else. It's in the baby. I feel like people get overwhelmed with that. I got to do all these 5 pillars, right? It's like, you got to break it down to, okay, let's see what one little thing can you do? Because I think people underestimate how much progress they can make with one little tiny baby step, right? Why don't you
mhm,
just walk every day for 10 minutes? Take the dog out. 10. Can you do 10 minutes? I can do 10 minutes. All right,
mhm,
let's do that for 10 minutes. And let's track it on this piece of paper because they need to see or put it on an app or something. I'm still old fashioned with
mhm.
paper. Um, and I used to do that with my kids is make all the charts with the stickers, right? I still, if you look at my don't tell anybody, but I have, in addition to an electronic calendar, a hard copy calendar. And you
Oh,
know what I do in that calendar, Pasha? I put stickers for myself
nice. Yes,
every
it's
day
such a
that I meditate. I get a cute sticker, just like when I was doing piano lessons as a little girl. It doesn't matter
it
what it
works.
is, right? Whatever works for you.
Yeah. When Mel Robbins was my coach for a couple years, my business coach
Lucky.
before she became a number one bestseller and podcaster and all that. And I would say if there's one thing I heard her say every session and and every conversation I'm thinking back, it was like, okay, can you do that for just 15 minutes a day? Like I was like, I want to
Mm,
become a professional speaker, I want to start a business, it does. And she's like, can you for 15 minutes, open your computer and search something or start writing something or clean your office or go out for a while, like 15 minutes. It kept coming back to these 15 minutes, and obviously that expands, but you're building the habit and you're building consistency and you're successful because you can do something for 15 minutes and you're like, yay. And then you celebrate it and you don't beat yourself up for only doing 15 minutes. You just let that be enough of the entire day. And then it evolves, as you can imagine,
mhm.
because now you have more strength and capacity and now you're celebrating yourself and you have more sense of accomplishment and the energy is different.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, totally. I love that. We're going to break real quick. Don't go anywhere. I know you guys are holding on to Pasha's every word. Don't go. We'll be right back. Hello, everybody. I'm back with Pasha Marlowe. We're having the most incredible conversation and just so much goodness here. And I love everything we're talking about. And I love so much. I told you this when I first met you that the work you do is just really near and dear to my heart with neurospicy people here in my home. And let's talk about your book, right? Because how many people say, I saw some stat one time that said, like, I don't know, 85% of people say that they have a book inside of them, right? But when it comes down to it, like less than 5% get around to writing it. And I get it. I mean, we get it firsthand. It is overwhelming to like say, okay, where are those 13 I knew I wanted 13 chapters. I always had 13 songs on my album. So I wanted
Mhm.
13. It was just a number for me. And like, okay, where's that all coming from? Like, and then you do one and you do two, and you still feel so far away. So
Mhm.
let's talk about your book and how you broke that down for yourselves. How did you get that done? I know what I used to get it done. I want to hear from you. How did you get that done? Because I know other people are like, yeah, I want to write that book.
Well, so the good news is you don't have to hire a publisher and make it complicated. Like anybody can literally write a book, send it up, send it to Amazon, post it on Amazon, and be done with it and self-publish. And and that's my first book. I went through a publisher. My first book was called, this is related, I promise, My Next Husband Will Be a Lesbian.
I love that title. Oh my God.
It's about the
That's
unraveling of
awesome.
forms. That I
I
went through
love
a
that.
publisher, and like many authors, the publishers don't actually help you market the book.
Right.
They help you create it, and then they take quite a big cut, percentage.
Yep.
My publishers, I believe, were corrupt, and they kind of ran off with the money, which
Oh
happens as well.
no.
So I'm like, I'm just going to self-publish. Plus, I'm very impatient. And so if I have a book in me, I don't want to wait a year and a half until it is published. So I had this book in me, Creating Cultures of Neuroinclusion, because the books out there on neuroinclusion were not inclusive. Frankly, like
Seriously?
really, like there's books on neuroinclusion
Uh-huh.
that talk about how to support neurodivergent people.
Yep.
That's awesome. However, neuroinclusion is also about including everybody. Like
Yep.
not just how to support neurodivergent people, but like how are neurodivergent people and neurotypical people going to work together? How about the needs of neurotypical people too? Like it just doesn't make sense to me to write about inclusion and not include all people.
Yeah.
So I wrote the book and I'm like, this needs to come out now. And I had a framework. It's a respect framework that allows people a really easy, actionable way to be more neuro inclusive at home or at work or anywhere. And I was like, I just need to get this out here because it's it's easy to follow. It's not a big thick book of a ton of research and stats, which also made it accessible to people. Anyhow, so I wrote it. It probably took me 6 months to write, however,
Uh-huh.
because structuring it was challenging for me. Committing to like this is the end. Like it's art. It's like art. You're like, oh, I could just do one more thing to this song or painting. Like I felt like it was never done. And even when it was
Totally.
published, I could have edited it and improved upon it. So letting it go, like letting it go to print was the hardest part for me.
Yep.
I also, if I do it again, and I think, and I hope to, I would only do it in the winter because it takes all your almost time and energy and a lot of time away from family and activities. And I don't want to right away a summer or a fall in New England. So I might explore doing it again in the dark, cold winter months.
Good
And
idea.
under my in my sauna blanket is where I spend most of my time in the winter, and then just write because you really it's hard to not hyper focus because if you interrupt yourself or transition too many times away from it, you lose the flow of the writing and the structure. So
Yeah.
I would just encourage people to do it though because it feels good to have something tangible out there from a legacy standpoint, but also as a speaker and as a coach, and probably anyone listening, it's an asset that you can use to kind of accelerate and complement the work that you're already doing. And so a lot of times I'll get work because people want to hear about the book and have a presentation around the book.
Yeah.
And sometimes workplaces will invite me to come in to talk about how to create more neuro-inclusive cultures, and then they'll buy a book for everybody in the room. And so it's helped for that too. And it's, they could take it home.
Yeah.
But what I love about this is that more often than not, people say, I thought this was going to be a book about the workplace, but it's a book about respectful peopling. It's a book about
Mm.
including people no matter their functioning style. It's a book about, making sure that any mind and body has an opportunity to thrive. And that's about all people.
Yeah.
Then it becomes very personal.
It's totally personal. I love that about respectful peopling, right? Because where doesn't that apply? Nowhere. We all need respectful peopling, especially in
Mhm,
these days more so than ever.
mhm.
Respectful peopling would be nice on social media, right? Like
Sure would.
it would be
Mhm.
nice everywhere to have that. And I love that because what you said is so ironic that it's a book about inclusion. So why are we not including everybody? Right? It's so
I
true.
think people who feel, othered and left out of conversations too much have a right to feel like it's been very unfair, and they want to make sure that their voices are heard and that there's representation. And so most of neuro inclusion is about how to best support neurodivergent people. And I think that's important. Um, but we don't work alone and we don't live alone. And really it's the folks who maybe aren't neurodivergent that also need support, but also and learning and unlearning. But I just don't see the use of excluding them or stigmatizing a neurotypical person to support a neurodivergent person. It makes no sense to me.
Yeah.
It really
Yeah.
has to be more collective and collaborative.
Yeah, I love that. And it's so true. And I think it really, in a work environment, it really does stand out a lot that, you know, people aren't really sure. We're all neurodivergent, I feel like, to some degree. We all learn differently, right? We all have these things that make us and make and endear us. And I think embracing that for everybody, like you're saying, is a really beautiful thing.
Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah.
Can I offer just two quick definitions?
Please.
Okay, so neurodiversity is just a biological fact. Like everyone does have different
Yes.
brains, different minds. So neurodiversity is the diversity of all minds.
Yes.
So humanity is
I love
neurodiversity.
that. Yeah.
Neurodivergent is actually an identity. Like it's not a
Yeah.
diagnosis, it'll never be a diagnosis, but it's an identity for people who diverge from neuronormativity, which is society's idea of what is normal or ideal. And it is most people because it includes ADHD, autism, dyslexia, also Down syndrome, epilepsy, also anything that ends in disorder, mental health
Yeah.
challenges across the board, anxiety, depression, bipolar, trauma, all of these are forms of neurodivergence. So then there are people who are like, who isn't neurodivergent? And there might still be a few neurotypical people, and that too is an identity, who do very much align with society's idea of what is normal or ideal. But because of the fact that society is becoming more disabling, I think it will, with each generation grow, more
Mm,
people will identify as neurodivergent, more people will identify as disabled,
yeah.
and queer, by the way, too, LGBTQIA plus,
Yes.
because everything is more fluid and evolving and expanding and being more inclusive. So yeah.
Yeah. I love that. Thank you for that definition.
Mhm.
And I feel like that's just for everybody to understand that and embrace that, right? It's really important. We do need definitions though, because people don't necessarily understand. And it's an interesting world nowadays, and I love, like, my youngest daughter went to school for kids who learn differently. I had to pull her out of public school, and she went there. I pulled her out in 5th grade because she was just, it was just not going well. The poor girl was drowning. Um, and so, when I explain to people, I always say that she goes to school for kids who learn differently. But to give me that um, neurodivergent title was a beautiful thing because it wasn't always that way. This was years ago when I first pulled her out. And there was not that word, you know? You don't want to say, I don't like my kids never grew up thinking, oh, we have a disability. We never talked anything like that in our family about anybody. So I love this new definition. It's not really new, it is just really giving it a label that feels good. It feels more okay, right?
Yeah, most people who use neurodivergent are really empowered by the fact that they do diverge from society's idea of
Yeah.
normal or ideal, because they're like, well, society's toxic. Thank you very much. So I am
Yeah.
great diverging from it.
Yeah.
Um,
Exactly.
but like it related to disability, I think there has been in the past a lot of unfortunately stigma, bias, negative connotation about disability, but the movement is really trying to make it a neutral word.
Yeah.
Disability neutral. Disability isn't always even negative, like that's a misperception.
Yeah.
So I think more and more people will really embrace these identities, and obviously without shame, but also without trying to hide or conceal them. In fact, what used to be called, sometimes still is, invisible disabilities is now non-apparent disabilities,
Hmm.
because disabled people always kind of feel invisible, so we don't need to like perpetuate the invisible
Right.
um, dynamic. But also, some disability is masked and then becomes apparent. Like,
Mm.
I'm autistic, and I masked really well for 50 years. Nobody would have thought it. And so I wasn't apparently disabled by my autism. However, once I allowed myself to unmask, and for example, my sensory overwhelm that comes so easily was unmasked, then the disability is actually quite apparent, and especially in certain situations. And
Mhm.
so it's an interesting language shift that destigmatizes and depathologizes
Yeah.
neurodivergence and
Yeah.
disability.
Yeah, and like you said, almost celebrates it in a way where they can be like, "Yeah, I don't wanna be like everybody else in society," right?
Right.
I
Yeah.
really like I said in the top of the show, it's in that story about all that they went through, that they made them feel different growing up that way, that is actually where that superpower lies, right? Like,
Very much.
my daughter happens to be one of the most talented singers I know,
Hmm.
and she has perfect pitch, which
Hmm.
is just a rarity, right? Like,
Hmm.
here I
Hmm.
am as a singer, and yeah, I blasted music in her ear since she was a baby and dragged them to all my gigs when I had my guitar and all that, and, um, but that's all hers. She owns that, right?
Yeah.
That is who she is, and she's been able to find a way to express this unbelievable beauty that is in there. This girl can go in, she has a lot of anxiety, right? And all
Yeah.
these other things going on, but she can go into an open mic, walk up to that stage, grab that microphone, and she just transforms. And I've
Wow.
seen this more times than not with because a girlfriend of mine runs this beautiful inclusion music program, right? It's called Music Includes. And shout out to Lori. And so a lot of the kids have very extreme issues, but when they get up on that stage,
Mhm.
something magical happens. It's like
Mhm.
they go back to their soul calling or something. Everything else appears to fall away, and they
Mhm.
just get to move into this other space and
Mhm.
embrace that superpower that they have.
That's beautiful. It reminds me, I used to direct children's theater, and I would work with a particular child who is a nonverbal autistic child and never talked or spoke, but I gave him the lead in several of the musicals because he sang and he could say the lines if it was scripted. Like he could repeat it back again with perfect pitch and act it out. But once he was off stage, no no verbal communication. Interesting.
Very interesting because I had somebody in our family that had selective mutism, and I could get her to sing all the time. Just,
Yeah.
I could
Yeah.
get her
It's
you
interesting.
just it's a very safe it feels like, "Oh," and then once, that happened, then we start opening up because now, "Oh, maybe this is a safe place," you know what I mean? And so there's so much power. We could have a whole another
I
show on the
know. I
power of music. But, so much power in that. I love
know.
that. That's really beautiful. Okay, we're gonna break real quick. Don't go anywhere, you guys. Come right back with Pasha. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Look for the Good. We're having this amazing high vibe conversation. I love what we were just talking about, Pasha, with the music and the beauty that brings out who people really are. And let's talk a little bit about you and I talked about neurobelonging, and I love that term. I love the meaning behind it. Let's talk about neurobelonging and how that's different from some of the other titles that we were talking about today.
Yeah, well, neurobelonging is a term I made up, so I love it. But I felt like the world needed it because
Yeah.
especially in the workplace, but maybe even generally, when we talk about belonging, we're mostly talking about belonging to a partner, belonging to a family, to a church, to a school, to a community, to a workplace, and that's great. However, I prefer to belong with other people and places and belong to myself. And I started to think
Mm.
about the inner journey to belonging. And can we, even in the face of judgment, criticism, rejection, can we still belong? Like here in our bodies, here in this space, here in this on this planet, because so many people do feel like they don't belong here. And by here I mean on earth. Like they don't feel
Mm.
like they belong because
Yeah.
they've been criticized, judged, othered, rejected. And that's true that they have. And sometimes by their families or friends or government or society and on. And so can we feel a sense of belonging? And I believe so. And that's why I was calling it neuro belonging, because neuro means nervous system, which includes the brain, it's the
Mhm.
mind, it's the nerves, it's basically like it's everything that, allows you to be you. And so I want people to know that if they stand in their inherent worth, and like everybody is inherently worthy, and if they stand strong in that, and if they can stand strong or feel strongly about their sense of self, their truths, their dreams, their values, like the things that make them them, the innateness, and they honor that, including honoring capacity. Like I said, I couldn't go work in an office because I need to work by myself. I need things quiet. Like I'm
Mhm.
honoring that innateness. And so that doesn't mean that I don't belong in the workforce. That means that I belong to myself and I can belong with the workforce, but in a different capacity than what society tells me is ideal, right?
Right.
And likewise in families, a lot of times I'll go to a family reunion, and I'm sure people can relate to this, and to kind of mask up, you might conceal some of your identities or beliefs or emotions because you don't feel a sense of belonging fully in all of your parts and all of your authenticity. Even though you might be told you do, sometimes you are not fully accepted,
Yeah.
but you can still belong in yourself. So you belong to yourself first so that you can basically belong anywhere, even in the face of that rejection. And right now, the reason why that's so important is because there are narratives out there in our society, and I'll just say in general in the political scene right now, that are that the narratives that people who function differently from society's idea of normal, specifically people who are autistic, specifically trans people, like there's a lot of dangerous rhetoric out there right now that's making people feel that they are a burden or not worthy of existing. And so it's really an inner struggle to still feel that and claim that for yourself. And I think it's a very important process. And I think so for too long and too often, and even as we were raised when we were talking in the beginning, I was raised that success is to belong to a company, and personal success would be to get married and belong to somebody, you know and I don't believe that anymore. you know I think it could look a lot of different ways, and for some people, and if I am going to partner, it's with somebody, and if I'm going to work with somebody, it's with them, not, they don't own me,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
No person or place owns me. And so yeah, I just think that's a important journey. And it's something that the younger people, when I speak to colleges and universities, kids really resonate with it, because they're often, I'll hear them say they feel like aliens dropped on a planet
Ugh.
without a rule book.
It's so I wrote that down because I had this coach one time for my daughter, and she said it's like she's a foreigner in a
Yeah.
different country and they're
Yep.
speaking a different language, right? Like an alien, what you just said,
Yeah.
it's like an alien and they don't feel like they belong. And that's
Hmm.
the message that keeps getting reflected back to them. So why would they feel like they
Right.
belong, right? Everywhere they
Hmm.
look around. And it's like, so how do you restructure that in their brain? Like how do you, and I love that you came up with this. You got to coin that phrase. Like a
I
little
tried to. I'm trademarking it, but
trademark
that's
it.
that's worse than writing a book, by the way.
I've heard actually. Yeah.
Yeah.
I've heard it's bad.
But
So
but yeah. So sorry, I didn't mean
no,
to.
go. You're launching with it.
Oh, well, I mean, so the tools would be, well, tell me who you are. Who
Yeah.
do you feel like you are? What do you believe? What do you dream about? If nobody were to get hurt, what would you do or say differently?
Oh, I like that.
And and actually saying that to, like, for example, middle-aged woman who's been a mother for a very long time, for example,
Hmm.
is like, what? Nobody's asked me what I want for a very long time. And they always filter, I should say always, often filter through the needs of their children first. Where would you
Yes.
want to move if your children wouldn't get hurt? What would you want to, how would you want to dress or eat if nobody, you know, noticed or cared or would get hurt? They're like, oh, well, let me tell you. And then, and I was at a program with Elizabeth Gilbert, the author of Eat, Pray, Love, and now All the Way to the River, and other books too. But those are the two I'm just thinking of at the moment.
Uh-huh.
And she and I were taking a walk at Omega, which is like a meditation yoga center in New York. And we were walking, talking about midlife and menopause and all of it. And she said, I think I'm just in my swamp witch era. And I'm like, what? She's like, yeah, I'm just not going to do or dress or say anything for the male gaze ever again.
I
And,
love it. And she shaved all her hair off
and
too to
she
prove
shaved
the
her hair.
point.
Yep. And you'll notice she wears a lot of what I call onesies, but they're like jumpers, like,
Onesies.
like universally unflattering, but extremely comfortable. And so we were both wearing jumpers that day. And so that's why we were walking in the woods laughing about being swamp witches. But like, that's a very freeing thing that comes with age,
Yeah,
thankfully, where
totally.
you're like, not going to try so hard anymore. Thank you very much. And I'm just
Yeah.
going to be comfortable. And that's such a wonderful thing
Oh,
to open up to. Yeah.
I love her. It's a really beautiful thing. And it's like, again, owning yourself, recognizing that you don't have to play that game anymore
Right.
and that it is okay to be fully you. And it's really a lot of what I was saying before too about that book I was listening to on tape. How do we come back to ourselves? How do we stop looking for that approval outside of ourselves and give ourselves exactly what it is that we need?
Yeah.
Right? How do we love ourselves better? How do we, because when it comes to accepting ourselves, how can we have our own back? Like, again, these are the things we've been trained to look outside of ourselves for. But truly, we have so much more power, especially as women, with our senses are super honed. We've got so much more power to come back to ourselves if we just decide we want to. And somebody like you can give us a path.
Yeah, it's my favorite work. You know, it's just it's it's beautiful to watch somebody start to release the masks and release the expectations they put on themselves and release the internalized ableism and shame. And yeah, I mean their whole energy transforms. And it become and they might not become like at more traditionally, I'm putting quotes, beautiful, but they become more beautiful 100%. Like they're,
Yeah.
you know, and you just see somebody in their confidence and in their glory and in their brilliance at whatever form or size or ability that takes on, and they just radiate themselves.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's what I see. It's such a beautiful
It's
transformation.
beautiful. Like you are right now.
Aw,
It's
thanks.
true. It is so
Thank
true because it's that self empowerment. We realize, and why do we have to wait to do this to get older? Why do we wait till we're older to do this?
I would love, I do think we have, I mean, we need to have a catalyst moment. And for a lot of people,
Yeah.
that is illness or losing somebody and
Yep.
grief. And for a
Yep.
lot of people, it is a disability or a losing of a job or relationship, but it's always a catalyst moment. I'd like to think it doesn't
So
have to
true.
be a crisis. I'd like to think it doesn't have to mean loss of, like, or death, but 2020, the existential, you know, awareness of COVID was a catalyst moment
Yeah.
for a lot of people. I think we're actually in that moment again right
I
now.
think
Here
so
we are
too.
towards the end of 2025, depending on when this launches. And so right now we're at the end of, almost at the end of 2025, and I think we're at this kind of place again where there's collective grief, collective trauma, collective existential awareness, and a shift will have to happen
Yeah.
soon.
Totally. And it does. It takes all that. I mean, that's what I wrote. That's what inspired me to write all that stuff in my book, right? It's like, and it's just it's owning that, and for different people comes at different times, right? But I think what you're saying is so true about us collectively being in that place and asking yourself, wow, how can I make this moment that feels so uncomfortable? How can I make it this something that can actually transform me, transform my life, transform myself for good, right? Because that's what we do here. We try to look for what's good in the middle of something that can be kind of stinky. And so, and it's retraining ourselves because our brain is so good at looking for what's wrong. It's just what it does naturally. I love to normalize that because all brains do that. So it's saying, hey, wait, I'm sick of looking at what's wrong. That's too easy. Let's turn it around. Let's start to point out what is actually good in my life and what I can make good. It's like being an alchemist, from dross to gold. What can I make good from this drossiness that's going on, this awfulness that's going on around me? How can I make myself feel better? And in turn, shine that out to the world so that everybody feels a little bit better.
So good. Yeah, I love that
Yeah.
alchemizing.
Yeah,
Hmm.
alchemizing is so true. And so I just love this conversation. You and I could talk for at least a whole nother hour here.
Part two coming soon.
So tell them where they can find out more about neurobelonging and you and your book.
Well, I have a website, pashamarlowe.com, to keep things simple. My name, Pasha Marlowe. And then on social media, it's easy to find me because I'm the only Pasha Marlowe. Um, on, on LinkedIn, I'm Pasha
Great.
Marlowe. It's really simple. On Instagram and TikTok, I'm at neuroqueer coach. But
Nice.
my book is on Amazon. I
Okay.
know I'd love it if it were in all kinds of other, alternative bookstores, but it's not because it's paperback, it's ebook, Kindle, and audio. Because I wanted to make it accessible and easy,
Yeah.
and right now that's the only place it is. Sorry.
Yeah.
But on my website, pashamarlowe.com, there is a neuro inclusion book tab and the framework that I use is
Nice.
there, and it's PDF downloadable and all the
Awesome.
things. And if anybody wants to hire me to be a speaker or a coach, it's easy to do that on the website as well.
And your website's beautiful. I already said to you multiple times, your website's gorgeous and you designed it. I love it. So, okay, this is the radio. We're launching radio first. So can you spell it for them? Because I know it sounds so basic, but let's spell it for them just so they have it. Your name.
So Pasha, last name Marlowe, MARLOWE.com,
everybody. And thank you so much for coming on the show and just sharing your beautiful heart with us today. You really are radiating, and you're just the epitome of what you described when somebody has really found what juices them up and their soul's mission in life. So thank you for sharing that.
Thank you, Carrie. So good spending time with you.
You too. Take care. And remember, everybody, it is never too late to live your best story. Be well.
Thanks for tuning in to Look for the Good with your host, Carrie Rowan, best-selling author and mindset coach. Join us every Monday at 5 a.m. and 5 p.m. right here at Dream Vision 7 Radio Network. If you weren't able to catch an episode, no worries. Just visit our website to find all the archived episodes of Look for the Good on demand, so you don't miss a thing. And remember, it's never too late to live your best story. For additional resources or to find out about how you can work with Carrie directly, visit carrierowan.com for more details.